Today's video is going to be on a 2007 Dodge Charger with a 3.5 liter. The procedure is pretty much going to apply to any of the other vehicles equipped with this engine, such as a 300 or as well as a Magnum, for example, and of course the Charger. The procedure is pretty much cut and dry. It's just a few things to look out for. I just want to run through you step by step what you need to take loose. That way you don't either take something off you don't need to or overlook something that you needed to. So with that, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get up under the hood of this vehicle and start getting our hands dirty. Now what I like to do sometimes is if I've got the part off the car, I can go ahead and show you a few things that maybe you might not see in the car. And this is actually our replacement intake. The reason why we're replacing this intake on that Charger is actually an issue with the runner valves. I've got some sticky runner valves that go in here. Those actuate to move, and these actually will determine different positions as far as which way the air is going to be routed within the intake. We've got a short runner and we've got a long runner. Basically off the vehicle you can see that these are the actuators for the runners. We've got our map sensor, we've got our electronic throttle body, and the studs with the bracket's going to come off of. And on the back side, which I can't show you on the car of course, you've got all your ports for your vacuum lines, your booster, your evap, as well as your PCV. And this little kind of a rosebud cut little portion here, this port, is actually where that EGR tube is going to go in, as well as that seal. So like I said, make sure you add a little grease right here, work fine, as well as the seal. Probably wouldn't hurt to put a little grease on these ports as well to make the hose go on well. You got your clip right here that the dipstick tube for the transmission will come through and snap in place. This side, you've got your two studs right here that the two narrow brackets running down to the cylinder heads will go. Otherwise on the bottom, we've got our seal, rubber seal, one piece. It's the only thing that seals the bottom of these. First step in removing this upper intake assembly is we're going to have to go ahead and get the air box off the upper portion as well as the rubber boot that goes from the air box to the intake. We'll go ahead and loosen up the band clamp over here, and then we're going to have to unplug this air intake sensor. Alright, and then there's one little hose, a coolant hose that kind of hooks onto it, and then we can go ahead and pop the hose coming off the valve cover, and we're going to release the snaps on the air filter box just like you would if you were checking it, and then we'll just wiggle it and get it out of the way. Now that the air box is out of the way, you'll notice that there's a bracket right here on the intake. There's a bracket on this side as well as two brackets on the far passenger side. And of course we got our bolts going down the center. We got our transmission dipstick tube here. You got EGR tube in the back, as well as rubber vacuum hoses, and just approximately about another 4 connectors that we got to get loose. So we'll move on to the next step. At this point we're going to go ahead and take the 10 millimeters loose from the center of the intake itself, and we'll work on the two 10 millimeter nuts on the side by the throttle body. You've got a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 along the front here, so down the middle. They're pretty long bolts. I usually like to pull them up, turn them a couple times, so you don't want to keep dropping down. So as you're trying to get the intake off and moving, you don't want them to keep dropping into the intake and stop it where you are. So I like to go ahead and get them up. That way it's free to move without anything getting in the way. Like I was saying, this bracket right here is not going to move till we loosen up the bolts on the side down here where it goes on the side of the head. I'll go ahead and disconnect the runner valve solenoids, the connectors for them. They have a what I call dual stage. They have a red lock on them. For example, this one you need to slide up. Same thing on this side. This one's actually slid up already. And then you squeeze in on the lock itself, pull it off, move over to the other one, pull it off. So now we've got those two connectors disconnected. Here's your map sensor, And we got basically the same thing again. It's a two-step process of getting the connector off. We've got the red lock right here. Now this one sometimes doesn't want to come out like it's supposed to, but you can try to get a screwdriver in there and kind of pull it. And then also sometimes when you go to squeeze, it doesn't want to come out too well. So I actually use a screwdriver to get under the front of the connector to get to that lock. And try working it loose. There we go. So now we got the map sensor disconnected. Now we still got the two 15mm down here holding the bracket in place. So I like to use a 3/8 flex head with a 15mm socket to get down in there. It's a little tight squeeze. That way you can start backing it out. Like I said, we're not going to remove the bracket. We're just going to move it out of the way. No need in taking something off that we're going to have to put right back on. If we can get enough movement out of it, that's all we need. That's one of them. And we got another one a little further back. See if we can get it the rest of the way by hand. Back that one out. And then you just keep checking until you got enough movement. There we go. Now we got the bracket out of the way. We can move on to the connector for the electronic throttle body. It's the same kind of basic style. It's got a lock that slides out. And then squeeze the end if you can. There we go. Now we got that disconnected. That's basically everything that's electronic that's on the car that we've got unplugged now. Now what we do is we'll move over to the other side. On the passenger side, you can get the two brackets that hold the intake to the head.